Hello and welcome to this second video on circular motion with me, Mr. McIver, at the London Central and North West Maths Hub. It follows on directly from number 1, which you probably ought to watch first if you haven't already seen it. Once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Ringle and Dr. Frost Maths for the original PowerPoint slides upon which this brief presentation is based. Here is what I expect you to know going into this video. I expect you to understand that angular velocity is measured in radians per second and denoted by that Greek letter omega. I expect you to know that for constant angular velocity, the speed around the circle, or tangential velocity, is simply r omega. The radial acceleration is given in two forms, r omega squared or v squared over r, and the tangential acceleration is naught. We're talking about a constant speed around the circle, so there is no tangential acceleration. The other two equations you really need to understand are F equals ma, Newton's second law of motion, you probably know that one very well, and this equation for friction, the maximum friction between two surfaces, is given by mu, the coefficient of friction, times r, the normal reaction between the two surfaces. Today we're going to start by looking at a conical pendulum. You don't get many of these in real life, but they are very important in terms of where they take you in mathematical modeling. So we're going to have a quick look at this. Here is my conical pendulum. As you can see, it's moving round and round in a horizontal circle, and that bit of string seems to be making a constant angle with the vertical, which turns out to be very useful. So let's stop that conical pendulum just here. Theta is the angle between the bit of string and the vertical. Now there are only two forces acting on this mass m. The first is weight, mg, which acts vertically downwards. The second is the tension in the string. Those two forces are wholly responsible for the movement of that mass. To analyze what's going on, the first thing I'm going to do is draw in a triangle there. It's pretty obvious that the angle at the top of that triangle is theta. I can now resolve my tension force into two components, the vertical and horizontal components, and I can now write down two equations resolving forces horizontally and vertically. First of all, resolving vertically, t cos theta must be exactly balanced by mg, because there is no vertical movement. And we'll call that equation number 1. Resolving horizontally, we get a net force towards the center of the circle of t sine theta. And then using our equation force equals mass times acceleration, we can write down t sine theta equals ma, equation number 2. Those are our two basic equations for the motion of a conical pendulum. And we can rearrange these equations in various ways and get stuff like this. I've rearranged both the equations for t and simply equated the results. And I can rearrange that to get acceleration is g tan theta. And acceleration I can now write as r omega squared or v squared over r, and work out angular velocity or speed around the circle as I wish. Right, let's look at a quick problem. Now you've got a choice about what you do here. You can watch me go through this and then try some problems on your own later. You can try it and then watch my explanation, or you can do some combination of the two and work through it bit by bit, checking my solution each time. So you can stop the video now. I'm going to start by drawing a diagram, and here is the basic diagram. Now I'm going to mark some important features on that diagram, the weight of 2g downwards and the tension in the string. I can now mark in the other two sides of a right-angled triangle and the angle theta between the string and the vertical. I can mark in the radius of the circle, acceleration, and write down my basic equations for acceleration. The next thing I can do is use Pythagoras to find the missing length in that right-angled triangle. Well, now I know all three sides of the triangle, I can simply write down sine and cos theta like this. I can now use the equations I worked out in the earlier section of the video, resolving vertically, which I can quickly rearrange to give me that. That's part 1 of the question answered. I can then resolve horizontally. T sine theta generates an acceleration a, and a is simply r omega squared. I know what sine theta is. I can solve that equation, and I get an angular velocity of that. The next situation I want to look at is probably a little more plausible. Here we have a vehicle travelling around a banked track. Instead of a tension in a piece of string, we now have a normal reaction exerted by the road on the vehicle, but the structure of the forces is exactly the same as it was for the conical pendulum. Let's zoom in on this vehicle and then simplify the diagram, modelling the vehicle as a particle. I've got a normal reaction R, a weight mg, and some net force acting towards the centre of the circle. We'll say the track is banked at an angle theta, and I'm going to draw in a vertical line there to give me a nice right-angled triangle, enabling me to resolve R into horizontal and vertical components. It's quite easy to see that the angle at the top of that triangle is given by theta. So when I resolve R into components, I get my net force towards the centre of the circle as R sine theta, and my net vertical force as R cos theta. I now get exactly the same equations as I got for the pendulum, but with an R, a normal reaction, instead of a T, a tension in the string. So there you are. R cos theta is mg. There's my equation 1. And resolving horizontally, R sine theta is ma. And I get the same equations as before. Notice that all of this assumes no friction between the car and the track. A bit implausible, but it's a useful starting point. Here is a cyclist going round a banked track. If the track's banked at 20 degrees to the horizontal, I want to know what is the kind of optimal speed for this cyclist to be going around the track, so that it's simply the motion and the banking of the track that is maintaining the circular motion, and we don't need to worry about the friction. Here's the diagram. Here's the triangle with my 20 degrees at the top. First I resolve vertically. I can rearrange that equation to get R equals 75g over cos 20. And then I resolve horizontally using the fact that I know F equals ma. So I get R sine 20 equals 75a, but I know A equals v squared over R. V I don't know, but R I certainly do. So I can write this equation as R sine 20 equals 75v squared over 25. I can now combine these two equations to get 3v squared is 75g over cos 20 times sine 20. I divide by 3, take the square root, and so there you have 9.44 meters per second as the ideal speed for the cyclist to travel to maintain that motion, not relying on the friction at all. What if we introduce friction? This is obviously a much more realistic situation. The best way to explain this isn't to do loads more theory, it's simply to do an example. So here we have a car travelling around a banked racetrack inclined at 30 degrees. The car is travelling along a circular path with a radius we know, 70 meters, and we've got a coefficient of friction between the car tyres and the track. Now we want to find the maximum speed at which the car is going. Hold on to that thought, because that is very, very important when we come to model the situation. The first part of the model looks exactly as before. We have a normal reaction R, and we've got a weight acting downwards, mg. However, we now have a frictional force too, and this is when you need to think what happens when a car takes a corner really fast. And the answer is it tends to slide out the way. Well, if this is a cross-section of this banked track, out the way will be up the slope. Friction always opposes the motion. Therefore, the frictional force in this case of maximum speed is down the slope. We have another force in this situation. So when we draw in our triangles, we get two of them. And when we start resolving forces, we've got more of them. So the normal reaction has a vertical and horizontal component, but the frictional force also has horizontal and vertical components. So our equations get a little bit more complicated than they were last time around. Let's start by resolving vertically. Our vertical force upwards is simply r cos theta as before, but downwards we now have this additional force of F sine 30 degrees. I'm going to rearrange that equation so I get mg on its own. We're going to call that equation 1. Now we resolve horizontally. Once again, we have two different forces to think about. Our r sine 30 bit, delivered by the normal reaction, but also the horizontal component of the frictional force. Using F equals ma, and additionally, using the fact that acceleration is v squared over r, which is v squared over 70 in this case, we write this. These are our two equations. And the next step is a little different from the one we used before. This time we are going to divide one entire equation by another. It looks awfully messy at the start, but it does tidy up. So the first thing we get is this. Yuck, looks a bit awful, but because we have a coefficient of friction, we can replace all our f's with 0.4 times r, so we can rewrite that equation as this. Now look at the left-hand side of that equation. Every single term has a factor of r in it. So we can cancel out the r's on the numerator and the denominator. On the right-hand side, we've got an m on the numerator and the denominator, so they go too. And now we have a slightly messy looking bit of algebra, but it only contains one unknown, v squared. So we can rearrange the whole thing to give us that. Then simply punch the numbers into your calculator and you find that the maximum speed at which this car can be driven round this bend is 29.5 meters per second. So it is a bit more complex when friction is involved, but it is only one additional term in each of your standard equations when you resolve. So to recap, today we looked at conical pendulums, two very simple equations that describe the motion of a conical pendulum. We found that the motion of a conical pendulum was analogous to the motion of a vehicle on a banked track where there was no friction. You just replace all the t's with r's, the normal reaction. But the most realistic example we looked at was on a banked track with friction. This is very similar to the previous ones. However, there is an additional term in each of the equations when you resolve horizontally and vertically. Notice that in the particular case I looked at on a bank track, we were looking at the maximum possible speed, because that's usually what you're interested in. You bank roads and racetracks so that vehicles can go faster, and you don't normally spend a lot of time worrying about the minimum speed. But you could work that out too. However, in that case, the frictional force would be preventing the vehicle from sliding downwards, so it would be acting up the slope. And that's it for this second video on circular motion.